didn't hire me to make 16 Excel sheets. They brought me in for a reason, which is my expertise, my years of subject matter expert. Every time I
Yes.
work down, I take away my own value.
I could be myself through and through and
Yeah.
still be a leader. I didn't need to work so hard to go up a ladder.
Hey, this is Coach Mo Faul. I am an ex-CEO, ex-COO, and about to lay out the soul-powered revolution. And you'll win in life by having your soul on fire. Hey, everyone, welcome to a executive chat session. We've got Nadia Clifford and Jen Ryan. We're part of one of our awesome top level masterminds, the Executive Circle. And I've known these ladies for years and have seen them become awesome, total badasses. So, Jen, I've known you for 3 years.
I think, oh, yeah, going on 4.
4?
Yeah.
And Nadia, maybe it's like 6.
Yeah, I think it's 6.
Yeah.
Sounds about
So
right.
I met these women when they were, let's just call it as it was, at the low point in one's
Mm-hmm.
career. That's how I meet everyone at the low point. So, I no judging. It just, that's what we do. So, Jen, looking back at where you were, and before you answer this question, please introduce yourself a little bit. Looking back at where you were before our coaching work together, what was the most unexpected insight or revelation you discovered about yourself?
So hello, I'm Jennifer Ryan. I'm a director of advocacy at a pharmaceutical company. I currently reside in Washington, D.C., and I've been part of Coach Mo's program for, I think, 4 years. Because I have at least 3 retreats under my belt. So
Yeah.
I'm going on 4. I'm
Yeah.
easy 4.
Yeah.
I might be 4 retreats. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Anyway, we definitely I hooked up with Mo and her team, thank goodness, coming out of when I lost my job during COVID. So I feel like there's probably a lot
Right.
of COVID babies in your house, Mo, because a lot of us were reshuffled
A disruption.
and
Yeah.
at low points for a
Yeah.
myriad of reasons during the
Mhm.
pandemic times. So,
Mhm.
my question is, what's the most unexpected insight or revelation about yourself? So, it's sort of about myself and sort of about the world. I
Ah.
think I think I realized I made most decisions through my heart, right? And I really think, and that affected a lot of my life. I'm highly emotional. I take things very personally. And I was never able to divorce work and the emotions I felt at work from myself personally.
Mm.
So I think one of the biggest revelations was being able to see the workplace in most of corporate America as
Mhm.
a game to be played, right? So I
Yeah.
think I finally took the blinders off and realized that every company I went to wasn't about Jen Ryan. There was a lot of Jen Ryans at every company. And the key
Mhm.
was to figure out the game, the rules, and the important players.
Yeah.
So, because I was such an emotional individual, I always took my roles very personally. And that clouded my judgment in being able to interact with people.
Yeah.
I had quote unquote enemies because they talked to me in the wrong way, and I had bosses that I wouldn't interact with because they didn't get me. And I realized I was
Mhm.
using a very one style communication approach. This is how
Yeah.
I speak, and if you don't speak that way, you and I aren't on the same page.
Love me or
Love
not.
me,
Right.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
There's my followers, and then there's everybody else. Be damned. So that was a very hard way to get
What
through
was
my career.
what, what was the game changer that you learned or the insight that you had through our coaching that allowed you to make that shift?
It was really, and I have this written on stickies over on all my laptops. Be the observer, right? Be the observer. Detach yourself literally. Take yourself out of your chair, pretend you're hovering over this conference room table with 20
Hmm.
different players,
Yeah.
and say, this is a game that's going to be played out. And the resolution has already probably been decided by those in charge. But you have a seat at the table for one reason or another. One, use it wisely. Two, emotionally detached. Don't get sucked into the fray. Because again,
Hmm.
the resolution or the outcome has probably already been decided because it's the right business decision, because the person in charge wants it to go that way, because from a resource perspective, it has to be that way, right?
Yeah.
So don't get sucked into that emotional fray because it is not about you. And if
So
you
good.
go for it or against it, it's still not about you, right?
Yeah.
So don't tear yourself apart if you didn't get to say or you didn't get your way. It was never about you, right? You have a
Is
seat at
is
the
that is
table.
is that the definition of freedom?
It really is the definition of freedom. And
Yeah.
and let me tell you, it's very hard to maintain that position, right? Like maybe you're at the master black belt level, but it's very, yes, it's very hard to always be that detached observer. Even sometimes when you're one on one with your boss, you have to realize you are still a pawn in this game, right? You are a pawn in this game, and he is telling you things he has to, from a corporate perspective and from his
Hmm.
leadership perspective, that he
Hmm.
has to keep the company going or to keep the story going, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a
Hmm.
lot of things that are said and done because we all have to follow the story of the company to keep us all afloat, right? At the end of
Yeah.
the day. And
Yeah.
even one on one, it is not about you. You are a role. You are on an org chart, you are a role. And they could put any name in that role. So don't take it personally.
Right.
It's hard.
And at the same time, you get freedom and you probably
Yep.
feel a better sense of agency,
Yes.
actually, because you're no longer flying
100%.
around with your emotional reactions. I love that.
100%. And you
Yeah.
realize this is why he's saying this to me. He doesn't
Right.
want to say this probably either. Or this may or may not be his opinion or way of acting. This is the
Right.
game and this is how it has to be played out. So it's
Yeah.
very freeing in that sense. And it's much less taxing on you personally, especially as somebody who rules with their heart, because you realize this isn't an emotional investment you need to make.
Right.
It's not where you need to put all your emotions. And as a matter of fact, it shouldn't be where any of your emotions come into play. Very freeing. Very
I
freeing.
love that. I love that. Nadia, we've been through 3 up levels since we've known each other.
A few,
Three.
probably
Your
three.
your career's on this trajectory, such a positive one, and you've become such a shining human being, and dare I say as well, mother of 3 very successful kids. Um, can you
Thank
share
you.
a challenging moment that since our work together, you've handled it differently than you would have before?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is negotiating
Mm.
compensation.
Aha. Yeah.
I never tried to negotiate. I always felt very uncomfortable, bargaining at markets and things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the first time I tried to negotiate after coaching, it was so scary, but I got my number because
Yeah.
I knew how to approach negotiation,
Hmm.
and that was a very different outcome. I got what I wanted instead of just taking what I was given.
Hmm.
Ask and you
Wow.
shall receive.
Yes. And you don't ask, and you shall just get what you get. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What
Right.
did it take for you to step into that courage and that strength?
Well, I think the first learning from coaching is what helped me, and that is how much value I bring to the table, and that
Hmm.
I am really a valuable resource to a potential employer,
Hmm.
and I bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise and influence
Hmm.
over people and vendors and all kinds of things. And coming with that strength that look at everything that I bring, and of course I deserve more. And that allowed me to negotiate, just even having that internal confidence
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
here's what I have. As opposed to before, it was more like a beggar's stance, like, can you please give me a job? Here it was more like, well, you need to pay more if you want me.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I remember a couple of milestones along that path. I also remember a very interesting turn with you, and you're an engineer. You're in the IT space, and you identify as an introvert.
Yes, I do.
And one of the most celebratory moments I have in witnessing your journey was when you were leading a product team. I think there was like 60 engineers on your first product management team or whatever, that you
Hmm.
were like, and they were from all over the world, and you're like, here's this introverted woman stepping into this. How is your ability to step into your power and stand in the executive level roles that you now have? How does that happen for an introvert?
That's a good question. Yeah, I lead in a quiet way, but fairly in a confident way. So I don't say much, but when I say it with weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I do notice the difference between how I lead and how others lead around me. And I notice that my words usually carry a lot of weight to people, and they really stand to attention when I do say
Mm-hmm.
something. And it is scary to me because naturally I don't like to be kind of in the middle of attention.
Right.
Well, I do sometimes, but not all the time.
Every
It's
now and then in
stressful.
certain doses, it's okay.
Yeah, but it naturally it's stressful to me. So it does take some resilience, kind of, and doing it afraid in a way to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
speak up and to be seen and to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that my own value and my inner worth really helps with that.
Yeah. And I would imagine that previously you may have thought you'd have to be a different person to be a leader or an executive, that you couldn't do it as you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I saw other executives that were maybe very outgoing and charismatic, loud, and all those things that I'm not, and sometimes not very good people.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, and I just didn't know how I could be something like somebody like that because I was not.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that I didn't have to be. I could be myself through and through and
Yeah.
still be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and kind of a related learning that I picked up is that I didn't need to work so hard to go up a ladder.
Yes.
Um, and it's kind of a misconception that the higher you go, the more you have to work. That's actually not true,
Mm-hmm.
because the higher you go, then you become responsible for decisions rather than the actual work. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that you have to work more hours or work
Right.
harder. You just work
Right.
smarter.
Yep. How did that? I'm sure that if and when you might remember the first time I may have said that to you, or thrown that for you, you were sort of like, uh, uh. How did that come together for you? Because there's a cliche, right? That what you just said, like, don't work harder, work smarter. But it's
Mm-hmm.
really a different paradigm that you have to live in to be an executive, isn't it?
It is a different paradigm, and sometimes, even to this day, it sometimes feels uncomfortable because when there's a challenging situation, I just want to kind of do something about it and get
Right.
my hands dirty and be the doer, because that is actually the easy thing. But instead, I have to remind myself to take a step back, look at the entire picture, think about
Mm-hmm.
it holistically. Who
Mm-hmm.
can I pull in to help? What can I delegate? What can we just chop off and not do at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so make more strategic decisions rather than just jump in and do it because it might not be the best. But it does take self-awareness,
Yeah.
because the natural tendency is to just go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And it's a reaction to want to fix or do instead of strategically having that discipline of what your role is. It's so common for women to overwork and fill in those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get pegged as someone who's a doer. Oh, she's not really able to get to the next level because she's always too busy, or she's doing, or the secret whisper of, if we move Nadia as a doer, who's going to do that, what she does?
Right.
So
Right.
women get pigeonholed in those types of scenarios. And I know when we first started working together, you couldn't have worked more hours. It put you in the
Exactly.
hospital. I mean, it was literally like killing you. I mean,
It was killing me. I was working way too many hours.
yeah, because you're capable. You're like you're a hard worker if someone lets you. Like, boom. And
Yeah.
you're multi-talented, and so you got a nice right and left brain going on. So you're able to think things and figure out stuff. And hey, I know the answer. Hey, I know the answer. And having that executive presence of the discipline of allowing others to fill in the gaps, and you not being that person. How has that helped you? I don't know. I want to say, how has that helped you be yourself?
Well, it probably helped me in a way that I can spend time on things that are actually more important to me than filling in the gaps for others. Because I rarely work more than, 8, 9 hours a day. Well, if there's some crunch time, I'll
Right.
work more if I have to, but it's not typical,
Yeah.
which means that it leaves time for me to do other things I love, play
Mm-hmm.
piano, write, draw, whatever, go running, spend
Mm-hmm.
time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it just opens up a whole world of other possibilities outside of work because we become so entrenched in our job identity that it just sucks everything up. It's like
Yeah.
that black
It'll it'll
hole.
it'll take what you'll give. Absolutely. It's like
Yeah.
the
And
vacuum.
it's like,
Yeah.
exactly,
You got to resist the vacuum. Mm-hmm.
you have to resist the vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, Jen, you had a similar experience, and this is funny because we did sort of casually agree to meet on this, and Jen and Nadia, we did a session a couple of years ago, maybe, on introvert
Mhm.
extrovert. And anyone who's listening in, watching this, you probably see the differences in these two awesome women. Um, Nadia is an executive who has a totally different style than Jen, and this is, I think, the cool thing about the two of you. And of course, we have all sorts of other different personality traits of women who we're coaching who are executives. You have to bring you.
Mm,
And Jen, you said something a little bit earlier, sort of about being unabashedly you. Like, if you don't like me, that's tough. Like, being you though doesn't mean you have to be that.
right. Yep.
How did you, or how have you navigated being you, but not being turn off you? I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
going to call it that just for ease of words.
And I had gotten a lot of feedback earlier in my career, and to degrees of the same comments today. Not only from my direct leaders, but the voice, the whispering in the company of they
Yeah.
form opinions about you, especially if you're, on the cusp of executive leadership, that I
Hmm.
was very passionate. And I originally took that as a compliment. And I'm like, no, they were nicely saying that I'm forceful. I'm over the top at times. I'm emotional. I get easily, turned on or agitated or whatever. And I
Hmm.
think probably through this course to a degree, I was able to think about communication, right? We do a lot around communication and
Yeah.
look at myself from the outside in. And somebody actually told me, Jen, you're a force. You don't try to be a force. You're just a force. So you don't need to bring anything extra to get
Mm.
noticed, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
realized, you know, especially around younger people, right? People starting out in their careers, I was probably scary, you know? So I really tried to look at myself through the eyes of everyone in the company and focus my communication a lot to only bring out that passion when it was warranted and when everybody
Yeah.
was at that level, right? Like I didn't need to be at that level all the time.
Dial it
All the
in, dial
time.
it down,
Right.
and sometimes
All the
dial it
time.
up.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes it requires a bit
Yep.
more of a, yeah. One
That
of the
was it.
things that both of you, I think, have, which almost every woman has, is this prove yourself over work. We talk about it with like filling in the gap and diving into the
Yep.
doing, but there's also this like prove it thing. And Jenna, I know that when you and I first met each other, this was something that was going on.
Oh yeah.
Working hard, proving your worth.
Yeah.
Well, how did you learn, or what did you learn, or what did you take in or integrate to not stay on that treadmill of that?
I mean, I think just through these years of coaching, right, I've come to know myself better. I've been able to look at myself above the fray as well. And really a lot of the lessons we had about that self-value, self-worth, boundaries. And I said this company brought me in because of everything I know from 30 years of
Yeah.
expertise. They did not
Yeah.
hire me to make copies because I feel bad and I don't want to ask somebody to make copies for me. They didn't hire me to, make 16 Excel sheets because I'm pretty good at Excel. But you know what? That they brought me in for a reason, and from which is my expertise, my years of subject matter expert, and this is the other flip, leadership expert, that
Right.
that that aligns to the level of my title. Every time I
Yes.
work down, I take away my own value. I take away my own value. Does it mean you can't do an Excel sheet if you really have a hankering? Sure. But if you're constantly being the worker bee, you can't be the leader, right? You can't be the
Yeah.
leader.
Right.
And
Right.
it really also it gets you to the level of, all right, now you're an SME, but to get to leader, you have to even supersede subject matter expert and
Mm-hmm.
become a leader. Because when you look
Yes.
at the presidents of companies, they can go from running Hertz to running McDonald's to running
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
leaders. Subject matter expertise doesn't even come into the play. So my
Right.
now my focus is stop being I know it all, I have the answer to everything, and start being the one who helps people find the answer, or help being the person who sets the direction for all
Yeah.
of us to align to an answer. And I
Yeah.
see that being the know-it-all isn't even getting me where I wanted to be from a leadership perspective. I'm still pegging
Absolutely.
myself as,
Yeah.
all right, she knows her
Yeah.
stuff. Keep her where she knows her stuff because that's going to be her forever
Yeah.
until she dies. Right.
Yeah. And that's a great addition to the do it all and know it all. I mean,
Right.
those are the two pitfalls
Yep.
a lot of women have because we've been raised to do good on tests, perform
Mm-hmm.
well, you'll get noticed. So it was always this sort of worker bee. I just thought of something, worker bee, not queen bee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nadia, from the perspective of one of the things that you really wanted to do with your career as it progressed was to become a thought leader,
Hmm.
and you have put yourself out there.
I
You
have.
have written consistently on LinkedIn. You've presented. What did you have to believe about yourself to know that that was something that like the world wanted to hear your voice?
Yeah, that was actually a difficult shift for me, is to believe that I have something of value that people will want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our inner critics are nasty little things.
They are. Uh, being
And
that.
yeah, and they tell you that, no, who are you to be telling people, who are you to be speaking at conferences and
Right.
writing articles? But I squished that little little gremlin of my inner critic,
Threw 'em out.
and
Yeah.
it paid off because it does create a certain persona, your professional persona when you write online, when you speak online, and so few people do it. Only like, I don't know how many percent,
Mhm.
5, 10%, and you immediately are viewed as a thought leader once you start speaking, publishing, just writing posts, and
Mhm.
people start believing in your expertise and they do listen. And,
Yeah.
I got a lot of positive feedback. I got um, jobs through
Yep.
just posting because I'm
Mhm.
front and center and
Yep.
top of mind. And
You were
yeah,
invited to speak in different places, and you actually even created a methodology. You want to just talk about that briefly, just so we can give you a little airtime on your agile methodology thing?
yeah,
Agile, the yin and yang thing. Is that?
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that's right. Yes,
I'm
I
watching you.
came up with an idea of marrying Taoism, which is an ancient, uh, I guess, spirituality teaching, and the concept of yin and yang, of softness and hardness, structure and flow, and how they have to be in balance. And I married that with the complexity theory and with basically an agile approach to development. And I spoke at conferences about an approach to complex technology projects and how to balance that structure and flow, for
Mhm.
example, because in order to innovate, you have to let ideas flow, but in order to execute, you have to have structure. So balancing that and alternating when appropriate and being aware of these different types of forces on top of just using agile methodology is really what takes it up a notch when it
Mhm.
comes to managing complexity and technology. So yeah, I came up with that thought,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the first time I spoke about it, it was
uh-huh,
intimidating because,
yeah,
like, who am I to come up with a new
mhm,
theory like that?
yeah. No, it was brilliant, and I remember when you first announced it, and I was just blown away that you were able to show your integrated intelligence, which is so great because you have the right and the left brain going at the same time. So you're talking about spirituality and technology, and you're boiling that down into a known methodology of agile, and then a known spiritual concept of masculine, feminine, flow and structure, yin and yang. I mean, put all that together, it's like, what? And I know you spoke on conferences, and you were like in your genius zone, literally, with that. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, it was it
Yeah,
was very rewarding.
yeah. Jen, you've won a couple of awards. You've been on stages. You've hit high marks in this chapter, this organization that you're currently in. Um, I don't know if you probably have won awards in the past, but I got to think that the level of executive that you now are in the world, and being able to step into the truth of your contribution being award level, what's that feel like now for you, being this version of you?
It feels great to get recognition. I mean, we're always um chasing, right, the next level. We're always seeking acknowledgement or approval, and then to actually get it and realize how many people were supporting you all along. I mean, I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
that means more than the award, right? To
Uh-huh.
different people who thought of me and said, she deserves this accolade, and we're gonna do what it takes to get it to her. And I was
Hmm.
inducted into a hall of fame for people who do commercials focused on patients, direct to patient advertising, which is, if anybody watches the network news or TV after 6 p.m. Yeah, you've seen a few of these.
Commercial after
Yeah,
commercial.
you've seen a few of these. We keep the networks
Uh-huh.
alive. So
Yeah.
I've done that for years and years and years, and it was somewhat, of an unacknowledged or semi-mocked area to be in, but they actually realized that it creates such a significant difference in patients' lives that they created an
Hmm.
award for people who are experts in this, and I got it this year. And it's only,
Hmm.
they only take in 4 people a year. So the fact that I was qualified, one, again, right? Like the fact that I was qualified, having done this for 25 plus years and still not thinking I'm there, and the fact that I had such a great group of supporters,
Hmm.
and the fact that the panel even said, yeah, she's done it. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful a little nod to all that I've done. It
Yeah.
is it, and it really, it's all about thanking the people around you, because
Hmm.
when you say build your network, this is part of what it's for. Like, make
Yes.
sure
Yeah.
you branch out your message, and your history reaches as many people as possible. And honestly,
Hmm.
treating people with respect on the way up is really what builds your network. Showing
Hmm.
people the kindness that you want to be shown, the respect, the working relationship, even if I am
Hmm.
sometimes an out there, people know that it comes from a good place. And then realizing that those people won't forget, and they will come and they will have you when you need them. So
Yeah.
it was just a wonderful show of community in my profession.
Yeah. So great. Both of you ladies have risen up through common pitfalls that professional women have: overworking, overdoing, over showing up, uh, sort of feeling unabashedly that you had to be yourself and there was no other alternative. One introverted, sort of like work hard, maybe they'll see me. One extroverted, I got to be an extrovert. This is who I am. I'm emotional. This is like being able to come into your truth means that you have more centeredness, obviously more grounded. But both of you are thriving at a level that probably was always on your heart. Maybe I could get there someday. And I just really want to acknowledge both of you for the work that you've done and the women who you have become, and how you then have been able to impact other people in your workplace. I mean, it's obvious that other people, the ripple effect has gone out, not just in your families and friends, which I know that has, but in who you have been in your workplaces. I mean, it's just an astounding ability to be an executive female leader with really positive core value and soul power traits. And I just call it yummy. It's just so yummy to know where you ladies are both living at the soul level. Anything else you want to share before we wrap this up?
I mean, the one thing I would say real quickly is, through this program and who I've developed, how I've developed myself, and the lessons we've learned and the experiences we've shared, I have a much greater level of calm and confidence that if something goes catastrophically wrong and we have layoffs or something happens, I'm not as frantic as I would have been 5 years ago. Right?
Uh-huh.
I would be catastrophizing if I knew, there was potentially a layoff coming, and not that that's the case, but just it
Yeah.
happens a lot. It's cyclical.
Hmm.
Now I'm not that. Now I said, well, you know what? Okay, I'll be just, whatever, out of a job for a little while, but then I'm going to take my time and choose, what I really want to do. Like, I have a different level of calm and confidence that I can roll with any punch. Bring
Yeah.
it. Bring
Yeah.
it. I can
Yeah.
roll with any punch. I have the tools. I'm not scared
Right.
anymore. I have the tools,
Yeah.
and I know what I'm worth.
Love it.
So,
Yeah. Love
okay.
it. Yeah. Nadia, how about you?
Yeah. Excuse me. I wanted to add something similar. It's a sense of freedom, because when you know what you're worth and that you're not married to your job, it gives you a sense of freedom not to be afraid to walk out. And I've had some very challenging situations in my career, even recently, where I had to speak my mind, where I had to confront people, and not being afraid to lose my job is very empowering.
Yeah.
Because I know I'll get another job. You know, I know the market is not always great. It may take a few months, but I will come out better on the other end. And it's such a freeing experience to not be always worried that, oh, what if they fire me?
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of women walk around with that fear because we were brought up that way, to fear the consequences of our
Yep.
actions or the consequences of exerting our power. And I think this is what has caged a lot of women, a lot of professional women, into staying at jobs too long, falling ill because you overwork, or having, sort of like career mishaps along the way. I mean, it's just so lovely to talk to both of you. So if you're listening to this, ladies, these women made it happen because they committed to themselves and their growth. And it takes some vulnerability to do that. It takes sort of admitting that there's should be another way, or there ought to be, or has to be.
Yeah.
And you both have lots more career left in you, and it's going to be fun to watch the continued effect. Thank you very much, Jen and Nadia, for joining on this soul powered revolution. We're all about helping women be as powerful as possible so they can be game changers. So thank you very much for joining me, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Everything that women face in the corporate world, in life actually, can be counterattacked, counteropposed by a woman's powerful internal sense of being. And I call that your soul power. I want to help more women understand their soul power, and I want to create a soul-powered revolution. This is Coach Mo, mofall.com.